what you have sent to me. You sent me Gayatri Spivak's most important and controversial writing, okay, which is there in our colonial studies, post-colonial studies. Can the subaltern speak? Okay, can the subaltern speak? It's very important essay written by Gayatri Spivak. Okay, the title can be translated like this in Kannada. ಕೆಳದರ್ಜೆ ಪ್ರಜೆಗೆ ಮಾತನಾಡಲು ಆಗುತ್ತದೆಯೇ? Can the subaltern speak? Okay. The subaltern is a term basically used in the military system. Okay. Those who support the chief commander of the military, that supporting agents or agent is identified as a subaltern. But later on, there is a lot of change in its interpretation, acceptance. Even Dalita literature is also read under the umbrella of subaltern culture. And those people who are economically weak, they are also considered, they are also studied under the subaltern culture. Even to some extent, colonial literature, colonial countries which were under the control of the British imperialism, they were also considered as the subaltern. So, within a short period of time, the word subaltern gained different layers of meaning. Okay, so it's a most important essay which is considered as one of the major source in understanding post-colonial literature properly. Okay, but very interesting thing is Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak. The name itself is very interesting. Spivak is not Indian, but Gayatri Chakravarti is Indian. Am I right? So quite naturally there comes a question in our mind whether Spivak is Indian writer, if at all she is an Indian writer, whether she comes under the umbrella of Indian writings in English or Anglo-Indian writer. Many questions are there. For example, there are some writers who write in English, but they are natives of different countries. Some of them are in America, some of them are in England. Okay, so these are all the questions. And Gayatri Spivak is one of the important feminist, Marxist, and also the structuralist. She has a wide area of knowledge and experiences which she has tried to cram in her very important essay, Can the Subaltern Speak? Okay, so before interpreting it in our native language, let me read this essay. Okay, just listen to the pattern, terms, very important literary terms, critical theories in the essay. Okay, and later on I will explain you in Kannada exactly what she wants to say, what is the argument of the writer, because this is very complex kind of writing where lot many things have been gathered, lot many ideologies, isms, theories, critical approaches. Okay, her total purpose of writing this essay is to call your attention towards the weaker section of the society, the unfolded part of the society. Okay, the uncovered story of the society. Okay, so let me first read the essay. You all please kindly listen it properly, and you will come across literary terms and theories, and we will explain them afterwards. She begins her essay in a very interesting manner. She says, Some of the most radical criticism coming out of the West today is the result of an interested desire to convert the subject of the West. Okay, it's very clear. We discussed it during while discussing globalization. What is that? Monoism, okay, converting the whole uh, culture of the world Eurocentric. Indirectly, it is abrogation of the culture of Europe on the East also. West, without taking your permission, without asking is your opinion, declared itself as the greatest source of the knowledge or improved civilization or one of the best cultures in the world. And whatever that appeared English, whatever that came from the Europe or the West was always treated as something unquestionable, something very scientific, something very cultured. Okay, but this indirectly created kind of the tension and pressure on the other communities of the world, maybe from middle part of the world or even from the eastern part of the world. Okay, that is what discussed in the first line. Some of the most radical criticism coming out of the West today is the result of an interested desire to conserve the subject of the West or the West as the subject. The theory of pluralized subject effects gives an illusion of understanding subjective sovereignty while often providing a cover for this subject of knowledge. Although the history of Europe as subject is narrativized by the law, political economy, and ideology of the West, this concealed subject presented it and has no geopolitical determination. The sub-publicized critique of the sovereign subject thus actually inaugurates a subject. I will argue for this conclusion by considering a text by two great practitioners of the critics. Intellectuals and Power, a conversation between Michel Foucault and Gilles Deleuze. I have chosen this friendly exchange between two activist philosophers of history because it undoes the opposition between authoritative theoretical production and the unguarded practice of conversation, enabling one to glimpse the track of ideology. The participants in this essay, in this conversation, emphasizes the most important contributors of French forced structuralist theory. First, that the networks of the power, desire, interest are so heterogeneous that their reduction to a coherent narrative is counterproductive. A persistent critique is a persistent critique is needed. The second, that the intellectuals must attempt to disclose and know the discourse of society, other society. Yet the two systematically ignore the question of ideology and their own implications in the intellectual and economic history. What she is trying to say in these two paragraphs with the examples of Michel Foucault and Gilles Deleuze is very simple, that these are two very important France-based or the culture of the France-based who only talk about the Eurocentric or West-centric theories and isms. And she makes a comment that These are the writers, thinkers, and critics who don't know the implication of intellectual and economic history of their own native land. Okay, why? Because they are bred and brought up and they are encouraged by the Eurocentric culture, Eurocentric society, Eurocentric intellectual history. So, further, she says that uh, next is, am I right? Huh. Anonymous subject in revolution. Okay, anonymous subject in revolution, a moist and the workers struggle. It is a writing written by moist intellectuals, however, are named the differentiated and differentiated. Moreover, a Chinese Moism is nowhere cooperating. Moism here simply creates an aura of narrative speciality, which would be a harmless rhetorical banal.